Well, welcome everyone to our Visvatomukha Orlando Sunday program. At this point, we usually recite the annual charana. I'm sorry, I don't have it pulled up on the computer. I'll have to get that next time. But many of you know it, so we can recite together. Om
Jnanatimirandasya Jnananashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dharati Swapadadikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatapalakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Parada Sahagana Raghunathan Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikakanta Radhakanta Namasture Taptakanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyeva Patitanam Bhavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
So, start out here with a quote by Srila Prabhupada. Everyone is searching after the truth. That is the philosophical way of life. So today we're going to talk a little philosophy. It's not necessarily like a beginner's talk, like introduction to Krishna consciousness. So is that anyone's here for the first time? I apologize. It helps if you have a little background in reading Srila Prabhupada's books in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. But first, a story. So a sadhu, a businessman, and a criminal walk into the forest. Sounds like a setup for a joke, right? So the sadhu said, "Oh, this place is great. It's so beautiful and peaceful. It would be a wonderful place to perform my meditation." A businessman walks into the same forest and said, "Oh, this place is great. Look at all this old growth timber. I could buy this place cheap, sell the wood, and make a fortune." Criminal is on the run from the police. "Oh, look at this place. This is great. This is so remote and isolated. I could hide out here for months. The cops would never find me. I could hunt the local game." So, three men, three different perspectives. So who really saw the forest as it is? For each one, their perspective is different. Oh, so some of you have seen this. This is a familiar image. If you've seen it before, don't say anything. But if you're seeing this for the first time, I want you to tell me, what do you see? What do you see?
An old woman.
Old woman? Young woman? Who sees the old woman? Who sees the young woman? Okay. Look at it again. The chin of the young woman is the nose of the old woman. The ear of the young woman is the eye of the old woman. Now do you see? So, as conditioned souls, we're subject for defect, a tendency to make mistakes. Great leaders, scientists, philosophers make mistakes. We have a tendency to be illusioned. We can take one thing for another, accept things which are not real as real. For example, mistaking the body for the self, or thinking happiness can be found in sense enjoyment. We have imperfect senses. Our senses are limited, and what we see is very limited. We can't see. So, what can we really see? We can't see microbes, we can't see distant galaxies, we can't see all the electromagnetic waves running through this room right now, right in front of us. So our senses are limited. And the fourth is we have the fourth defect of the conditioned soul's cheating propensity. Even though our knowledge is limited, we still might claim to know something that actually we do not. So the topic of today's talk is reality or illusion. So there are the three big questions of who am I? What is this world? Who or what is God? We come here to experience joy of kirtan, devotee sangha, dancing, exuberantly before Nitai Gaur Nataraj, Ami Prashadam. But besides these, it's important to be firmly grounded in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada, besides teaching the chanting of Hare Krishna, engaged his disciples in service, opening temples, worshiping the deity, and he thoroughly dedicated himself to giving philosophical transcendental knowledge and to engage his disciples in distributing those literatures all over the world. You see, we need that to advance and stay strong in Krishna consciousness and withstand the onslaughts of the material nature. So that's why we're always emphasizing as a vital part of our own development in Krishna consciousness to study and Prabhupada's books daily and to understand them. Of course, that's a big part of our outreach to distribute them. So, who am I? Who is God? Or what is God? Why am I here? What's this? What is this crazy place, this world we find ourselves in? We're going to examine these questions especially from two perspectives. We're going to compare the impersonal viewpoint of the Advaitins, headed by Shankaracharya, compared to our Gaudiya Vaishnava understanding. And both these schools of Vedantas base their understanding on basically the same scriptures, the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita, but come to greatly different conclusions. So we're going to compare and see who wins the battle. You might have some clue already. Did everything in this world come about by chance, as the scientists say? There was like a big explosion sometime billions of years ago, Big Bang, and then yada, 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 billions of years later. Well, here we are. It's just some random and arbitrary, no intelligent lawgiver. So let's see what the two schools of Vedantas say. So, first of all, Isha Upanishad says that one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessing of immortality. So, in examining Mayavadi philosophy, we could be said to be studying nescience and transcendental knowledge side by side. The highest truth, this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 112, is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. And when I speak of Vedanta Sutra, Vedanta Sutra is a very important literature. It's not really a philosophical book as such. It's more like a hook that the teachers can use to introduce their ideas. And all the acharyas have written commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra. The natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra is the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is our commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, written by the same author, Srila Vyasadeva. I'm going to skip that one for now. So first I'm going to start with a mantra that many of us are very familiar with. This is Prabhupada's Pranam mantra. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshitade. And I'm told that Prabhupada composed this himself, and I've heard it referred to as Prabhupada's mission statement. And I like that description very much. Here's what Prabhupada was always countering Mayavadi thought and impersonalism. Prabhupada wrote a Vyas Puja offering to his own spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Many of you have heard before. And the verse that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur especially liked, it said, absolute ascension thou hast proved, impersonal calamity thou hast moved, or thou hast removed. So here's what Prabhupada says about that verse in the purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adilila 1084. As members of the Krishna consciousness movement, we belong to the family or disciplic succession of Saraswati Goswami, and thus we are known as Saraswatas. Obeisances are therefore offered to the spiritual master as Saraswati Deva, or a member of the Saraswata family, Namaste Saraswati Devi, whose mission is to broadcast the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gauravani Pracharine, and to fight with impersonalists and voidists, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshitade. This was the occupational duty of Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Anupam Goswami. So, when Prabhupada first started his preaching in New York City, he opened a small storefront and started having classes every day in Bhagavad Gita. One of the first students to attend was Hayagriva, then Howard Wheeler, and the students there couldn't quite figure out what's all this business with Mayavadis. He's always talking about the Mayavadis. They figured, man, it was some group in India maybe Prabhupada had a bad experience with and still has a grudge. So Prabhupada hadn't yet finished his Bhagavad Gita. He hadn't published his Bhagavad Gita as it is. So they would read the translations from another version of Bhagavad Gita by Dr. Radhakrishnan. And they wouldn't read the purports, and Prabhupada would speak on it. So one day, though, Prabhupada asked them to read the commentary on something, Bhagavad Gita 9:34, where Krishna tells Arjuna, engage your mind always in thinking of me, offer your obeisances and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So the commentary, Prabhupada had to read the commentary, and it said that it is not to the personal Krishna we have to surrender, but to the unborn, beginningless, eternal, who speaks through Krishna. Just see, Swamiji said disgustedly, I told you he was an impersonalist. This Mayavadi philosophy is worse than atheism. So at that point, one of the boys who fancied himself as something of an intellectual, he started defending Radhakrishna's point of view, quoting Shankara, quoting Wangpo, Buddha, Christ, Spinoza, St. Paul. I think he's right. After all, Krishna is in all of us. So if we surrender to the unborn within us, then we attain the absolute. And he talks on and on about the self and the one mind, quoting liberally from various scriptures before finally winding down. So Prabhupada, then Swamiji, said, so you've understood what we've been saying, that Krishna is God? Yes, the student replies. And that worship is due God? Yes. Suddenly Swamiji, red and furious, began to stand up. Then why do you want to take it away from Krishna? He roars, shaking the small storefront. It's Krishna! It's Krishna! He slams his hand down on the lectern. It's not the unborn within Krishna, it's Krishna. Hayagriva continues, we all sit stunned, as if a lion had pounced on the dais. Krishna, the Supreme Personality, is directly telling Arjuna, to me, worship me. And Radhakrishnan says that it is not to the person Krishna, but to some void. Just see what a nonsense rascal. Do you want to worship some unborn void instead of Krishna? Krishna is the absolute truth. His body, mind, and self are absolute. And he says, think of me, be devoted to me, worship me. And even Shankaracharya says, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda. Worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. Your nonsense will not save you at death. And yet this rascal wants to take it away from Krishna. Krishna says, worship me. Do you not understand? Then why are you not saying it is not to Krishna? Why? Why not to Krishna? So at this point, Hayagriva realized that Prabhupada is talking to them. He was addressing the impersonalism with their house. He wasn't talking about some obscure sect in India. This impersonalism is everywhere. It's actually the default mode of the material world. This is why we come here to rebel against Krishna and think we can be happy without him. So it's a serious. Shankara is a serious philosopher, brilliant intellect, and we need to take him seriously. He's the one who wrote the commentary on Vedanta Sutra that establishes impersonal philosophy, and his commentary is so important that all of the Vaishnavacharyas, all of them, from Ramanuja and Madhva to the Goswamis, Lord Chaitanya, down to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and our own Srila Prabhupada, all of them had make it a point to strongly refute Shankaracharya. So, let's see. Sometimes we can joke about impersonalism, but that's okay. But we can't just dismiss it jokingly. Here's a Mayavadi joke. Maybe you heard this one. How does Mayavadi order a pizza? Make me one with everything. Yeah. So, some of the modern descendants of Shankaracharya are not as serious philosophers as he was, and they can be more easily dismissed. I'll give you one example. Ravindra Swarup Prabhu wrote a funny article in back in 1980. It was called Yoga Mush and the Jerk Divine. So Ravindra was telling about the time when he was president of the Philadelphia Temple, and some impersonalist groups that came into town to give a presentation. They put up these posters all over town, these leaflets, and it came to the devotees' attention. And on these leaflets it said in big bold black letters, Krishna meditated, he became God, the love divine. Buddha meditated, he became God, the knowledge divine. Jesus meditated, he became God, the forgiveness divine. Now God wants you to meditate so you can become God. And the devotees showed, and become God, what God? The jerk divine? So Ravindra went to this meeting and to challenge the Mayavadi speaker, and the guy would talk for 45 minutes, then took questions, and Ravindra challenged some of the points he said. And the speaker said, well, I'm just trying to express in words what's inexplicable. And Ravindra, what? You've been talking for 45 minutes, words, and as soon as I challenge you, suddenly words are meaningless? And then suddenly he felt a heavy hand on his shoulder. Hey man, you're creating duality. So, okay, now this is actually silly. Any one of us should be easy to be able to refute this. Krishna never had to meditate to become God. Krishna was God from his very appearance. And even Shankaracharya wouldn't say something as silly as by meditation you can become God. So let's examine here kind of the history of the journey from atheism to Lord Chaitanya's philosophy of Achintya-Dvaita Tattva. So we'll start with Buddha. Buddha appeared 6th century BC. His philosophy was shunyata. You hear Buddhists talk of emptiness, which is a kind of atheism. By realizing that things lack a fixed essence, one can reduce attachment, which are the root cause of suffering. So Buddha, we could call this misguided atheism. Now we understand Lord Buddha as an incarnation of Vishnu who appeared to stabilize the world when it was filled with atheistic tendencies and rapid animal slaughter. So Buddha taught a version of nonviolence, ahimsa, suited for the times. Since the Vedic rituals were being misused to justify wholesale animal slaughter, Lord Buddha rejected the authority of the Vedas. Since the people at the time could not accept theism, Buddha's teachings focused on ending suffering by seizing material desires, but without mention of God, thus creating a philosophical void that later needed to be filled. So the first one to try to fill this void was Shankaracharya. So he's sometimes called Adi Shankaracharya because Shankaracharya has become a title in India for various leaders of the Advaita sect. So to distinguish them from the original Shankaracharya is called Adi Shankaracharya. So in this presentation, I'll just refer to Shankaracharya as Shankara or Shankaracharya without Adi Shankaracharya. So his mission was correcting atheism with impersonalism and reestablishing the authority of the Vedas, but he did this by promoting a philosophy of impersonalism, Advaita Vedanta. Prabhupada viewed this Advaita as a covered or disguised form of atheism. So he denied the personal form of God and the distinct identity of the individual soul. He was considered a necessary step to bring people back to the Vedas, but without the ultimate truth. So then come the Shankaracharyas in the 8th century AD. Then in the 11th century AD came Ramanujacharya. And Ramanuja appeared to correct Shankaracharya's impersonalism. His philosophy is called Vishtadvaita, or qualified non-dualism. That the ultimate reality is a personal God. He emphasized the worship of Vishnu, not Krishna, with distinct attributes. Shankara's Advaita, the absolute is one. There's one Brahman without attributes, without qualities, without distinction. Everything is this one Brahman, and we'll get into his idea of what is this world and what are the jivas in a little later. So Ramanuja reestablished the personal nature of God, emphasizing devotional service, bhakti. So Madhvacharya came in the 13th century AD, and his philosophy is called Dvaita, dualism. Now, I'm not a scholar in this, so I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference between Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, but I'm sure someone who is more familiar with this could fill this in more. But he did he made a clear distinction between God, Vishnu, and the individual soul and matter. So they were eternally separate. That's why it's called dualism. When we talk of the Advaitism of Shankaracharya, the word Advaita literally means not two. Va is two. Advaita means not two. There's just one reality. There's one reality, that is Brahman. And any two-ness you see is illusion, Maya. So, oops, let's go back. Okay. Lord Chaitanya is the culmination. His philosophy is Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. So if you go through the progression, Buddhism, emptiness, zero. Shankaracharya, oneness, all's one. The Vaishnavacharyas, there's two. Dvaita. So what's next? If you say three, you're not right.
1 and 2.
1 and 2, exactly. Very good. 1 and 2. Simultaneously, inconceivably, one and different. So Lord Chaitanya, Krishna himself, he came to combine two understandings. He taught that the jiva is at the same time one and different from God. The soul is simultaneously one with God as a spiritual being and different from God as an eternal servant. Or as we could say, one in quality but different in quantity. And Lord Chaitanya's teachings are the final and most complete realization of the absolute truth, culminating in the practice of chanting the holy names of Krishna, Harinam Sankirtan, as the supreme means of devotion. So, there are four Vaishnava Sampradayas. Here I've mentioned Ramanujacharya, he's of the Sri Sampradaya. Madhvacharya is of the Brahma Sampradaya. That's our own heritage. We're descended from Madhvacharya through Lord Chaitanya. Vishnu Swami is of the Rudra Sampradaya, and Invarka is of the Kumara Sampradaya. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his book Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, he relates how Lord Chaitanya accepted principles from each of the four Vaishnava Sampradayas, and by combining these points, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives all Vaishnavas a common sense of cause and foundation, establishes that the living entity is simultaneously part of Krishna, but also eternally separate and distinct. So, before we go any further into the philosophy of Shankaracharya, a warning. And this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the Lord Chaitanya who's instructing Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, Jivara Nistara Lagi Shuchakaila Vyas Mayavadi Vasya Sunile Haya Sarvanash. Srila Vyasadeva presented Vedanta philosophy for the deliverance of conditioned souls. But if one hears the commentary of Shankaracharya, everything is spoiled. So if I say something about the philosophy of Shankaracharya, you have to promise you're going to stay till I cover the refutation. I don't want anybody to leave halfway and be like a half-converted Mayavadi. So I for this presentation, I lean heavily on a seminar given by a wonderful devotee in Utah, Radhika Raman. And this was a seminar he gave several years ago to ISKCON Silicon Valley. He's a scholar and academic. He grew up actually in a devotee family, and he received an elite education, got his PhD from Oxford, and now he's a university professor. His specialty is in teachings of the Vaishnava Acharyas. He wrote his PhD thesis on the Paramatma Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami. So, this is the morning. So, we'll get into a little bit about the Advaita philosophy of Shankaracharya. There's one reality, Brahman. Brahman has no attributes, cannot be described, is beyond words, language, and cognition. That if you see, the way we see language, there's subject, predicate. You're describing something as one thing. If it's described as one thing, then I mean it's not something else. So because Brahman is unlimited, you can't limit it by describing it. If you describe it with words, that's putting a limit on it. So, which leads to a very interesting interpretation of scripture, which are composed of words. So, Brahman is precognitive beyond words and beyond even thought. So, what is that? And the moment of realization is not something you've actually read in scripture, but it's this kind of aha moment where you realize that all is one. So, and Shankara describes this realization as kind of a person in deep sleep where there's no thought, no dream, which, I mean, seriously, for a devotee, it doesn't sound really real appealing. So they see scripture, and besides scripture, guru, deity, as a boat to get to the other side, of this world of avidya or ignorance. And when you get there, you don't need scripture anymore. You don't even need the guru. I mean, you the guru, you're all one. So you the deity. Sometimes they even worship the deity, but not the same way we do it. Out of devotion to Krishna, they see the deity as. Well, I'll talk about how they see the incarnations in a bit. So in Lord Chaitanya's conversations with Prakashananda and Saraswati and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, two leading impersonalists, he said that you do not take the direct meaning of the scriptures. And this is what he was talking about. He wasn't saying that you have a different interpretation of the scriptures than we do. He said that it's much more fundamental than that. That you're saying that the statements of the scriptures don't even directly apply to Brahman, and it's just leading you the way. So, because after all, the absolute truth can't be described in words. So this is what Lord Chaitanya means when he says you're not taking the direct meaning of the scriptures. So, the pot, it should be this pot in the sky. This is one of Shankara's favorite analogies. The pot in space, I'll say space. The pot in space and the space in the pot. So, if all is one Brahman, who are we? I'm not like the supreme Brahman. I mean, I don't think I am. Maybe I am, I just don't know it. But so what is my individuality? There's no, according to Shankara, there's no individual self as the jiva. So Shankara's metaphor is the jiva is like a pot in the sky, a pot in space. So the sky outside the pot and the sky inside the pot, what's the difference? It's really the same sky. It just has, in the pot, it has some shape, some semblance of individuality. The pot is Maya, avidya, and when you smash the pot, what happens to the sky inside? Well, really nothing happens to it. It's just, you give up that illusion that there was any separateness to begin with. So, and then, okay. Nitya Gauranataraj, please forgive me. But what do they say is the avatar, is the incarnation? Well, an incarnation is just a really big pot. That it like encompasses the whole of material creation, but it's still covered by avidya. So this is their idea of an avatar, and because Brahman has no real form, they think you can worship any form, that you can worship any god, and it's basically the same thing. So there's actually things we have in common with Advaitins, but the thing where we vehemently disagree is their idea of Maya. We admit that there is one absolute truth from which everything emanates. This is common with Shankaracharya, that Brahman is the source of everything. Brahman is everything. But their idea of Maya is quite different. So let me go to another one of Shankara's favorite analogies, the rope and the snake. Now, this is something that Srimad Bhagavatam and our acharyas use, the rope and the snake analogy, but very different. I'll explain that difference in a bit. So this is to explain the nature of the material world and really the nature of our individuality. So it illustrates how ignorance, avidya, causes us to mistake the rope of the true self, Atma, for the illusory snake of the ego, jiva. This misperception leads to suffering and fear, but with knowledge and clear perception, the illusion vanishes, revealing the true nature of reality. So here's how the story goes. In the dark, a man walks out and he sees a rope coiled up. And he said, a snake! And he freaks out, his heart beats palpitating, he runs in the house. It's, in India, everyone's afraid of snakes for good reason, because there are a lot of deadly snakes there. So, in the morning, he goes out again and he sees, it wasn't a snake after all, it was just a rope. So, that's his revelation. The false perception is dispelled, and he realizes it was a rope all along. So what's the significance? According to Shankara, the illusion of mistaking the rope for the snake represents Maya, avidya, ignorance. The snake symbolizes the false sense of self, and more broadly, the whole material existence, which is an artificial construct superimposed on the true reality. So this is their idea of superimposition, that there is no snake there, but you've superimposed this idea of a snake on the rope, just like the one reality, Brahman, we've superimposed this idea of the material world and our individuality on Brahman. And so, turning on the light of knowledge dispels the illusion of mistake and the illusions of Maya. So, what is there's a lot of problems that our Vaishnava acharyas point out with this analogy. Actually, I'll get into that in a bit with Ramanuja's 7 untenables. Let's go there now. So the seven untenables, these are Ramanuja's Acharya's 7 attacks on mind-body philosophy. And they're very good and they hold up very well, and all the Acharyas since then have used them. Even today, there's regular, in South India, there's regular conversations between the Vaishnavas and the Shankarites. And according to Prabhupada, the Vaishnavas always end up victorious. So the first untenable. Where does ignorance, avidya, reside? Where? Does it reside in Brahman? Well, how can ignorance reside in Brahman? Brahman is all cognizant, all knowing, without any duality. So where is this ignorance? This is a paradox. There's no proper basis for ignorance to rest. The second untenable. How can ignorance conceal Brahman? So Brahman is self-illuminating. How is this ignorance covered Brahman? Is ignorance more powerful than Brahman, that it can cover Brahman? How can a lesser force like ignorance obscure it for the jiva? Third untenable, the indefinable nature of avidya. So avidya can't be defined as either existing or non-existing. So we have this, let's go back to the snake and the rope. Is the snake real? No, there was never really a snake. Was the snake unreal? Well, according to Shankar, no, you can't say it's unreal either, because it had a real effect. I mean, the guy freaked out. He practically had a heart attack and ran into the house, scared out of his mind. So, if it's not real and it's not unreal, what is it? We have no experience of anything that can be both not real and not unreal at the same time. So this is logically problematic. Fourth untenable of Ramanujacharya. The very definition of ignorance is contradictory. To define something as undefinable, anirvachaniya, that's Shankara's term for undefinable, which is how he describes the material world, avidya. So it's a contradiction in terms. Since Maya is experienced, its reality cannot be denied, but Advaita insists that it is not absolutely real. Fifth untenable. What is the valid proof for the existence of ignorance? Advaita says avidya is known through perception and inference. However, these are themselves products of avidya. So you can't use an instrument of illusion. I mean, our individual perception is a product of illusion. How can you use a product of illusion to prove the existence of illusion? So, sixth untenable. How is ignorance removed? Advaita teaches that knowledge of Brahman through scripture removes ignorance. But if Brahman is already self-luminous, the individual soul's knowledge is itself part of the illusion of duality. It is not clear how an illusory piece of ignorance can destroy the illusion of which it is a part. In other words, if avidya is real, there is no means of removing it. If it's unreal, it can't be removed. So these are all logical inconsistencies. You're saying that everything is Brahman, but still ignorance and the variety of in the material world and the individual jivas, they all exist, or do they? If everything is Brahman, where do these things come from? It can't be. It's contradictory. So the seventh, the goal of liberation is incoherent. If ignorance is removed, the world of duality ceases for the liberated soul. Yet others remain in illusion. How can the same absolute reality be simultaneously in illusion and liberated from it? The cessation of ignorance is not absolute for all jivas simultaneously. So someone can become enlightened. Ignorance is removed. Well, why are others still in ignorance? If the ignorance is removed, was it removed just for that individual? But there is no individual. So, crazy philosophy, but very prominent. Very prominent. So, as Vaishnavas, we have to be aware of these inconsistencies, know how to deal with them, and to be strong in our conviction and in our preaching. You know, I said at the beginning that impersonalism is kind of the default mode of the material world. I'll get more into that a little later, but most people are not convicted impersonalists. They're not going to argue on the basis of Shankara. Very, very, very few. Most are just impersonalists by default, because they don't understand the nature of the absolute truth as being ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So,
like pantheism. Like pantheism. 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 You know pantheism? Pantheism is a philosophy that everything is connected, all the nature, and so everything is one. It's a kind of modified philosophy, but it's not presented as Shankara.
It's there everywhere. So, and you know the cloud motif here. This is a purport by Srila Prabhupada from the Bhagavatam 3:32-28, where Prabhupada compares the material world to a cloud. So in Bhagavad Gita it is said that because the whole world is illusioned by the three modes of material nature, the common conditioned soul, being covered by such energy, cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example of a cloud is very nicely given. All of a sudden there may appear a big cloud in the sky. This cloud is perceived in two ways. To the sun, the cloud is a creation of its energy. But to the ordinary common man in the conditioned state, it is a covering to the eyes. Because of the cloud, the sun cannot be seen. But it is not the sun that is actually covered by the cloud. Only the vision of the ordinary being is covered. Similarly, although Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord, who is beyond Maya, that energy covers the ordinary living entities. So this is the Vaishnava idea of Maya. This is, and as the energy of the Lord, and this concept of the Supreme Personality of God possessing energies is very important. The absolute truth is there. It is this not non-dual, absolute, unchanging existence, but still possesses variegated energies. This material energy is one energy. We as jivas, we're also another energy of the Lord, the marginal energy. We're covered by, as individual jivas, our vision of the absolute truth is covered by Maya. The absolute truth is not covered by Maya. This is the needle that Shankaracharya is trying to thread. How Brahman is somehow mistaking Brahman for not Brahman. No, as the Lord's marginal energy, we can be covered by Maya. The Lord cannot be covered by Maya, but our vision of the Lord can be covered by Maya. You see the distinction? Shankara wants to say that Brahman is covered by Maya, and that leads to all kinds of logical inconsistencies, as we pointed out in Ramanuja's Untenables. So here's some other critiques of Shankara and his impersonalism, as given by other Vaishnavacharyas. So, personality and impersonality. The Vaishnava asserts that the ultimate truth is a personal God, that is Krishna, not an impersonal Brahman. They argue that if humans have personality, their ultimate source must also possess it, as the cause cannot be less than the effect. To suggest an impersonal, non-sentient absolute creates a paradox where something with qualities comes out of something without qualities. This is an argument that Prabhupada frequently uses, that we have personality. So is the source of everything. It has everything we have and much more. So how is there no personality in the absolute? So the existence of suffering of the individual soul is identical to the existence of suffering. If the individual soul is identical to the absolute, why does it experience suffering and ignorance? Critics like Madhvacharya and later Vaishnava acharyas argue that an all-powerful, all-blissful Brahman would never willingly subject itself to such misery. So if Brahman is all-powerful, why did it allow itself to do that? Be covered by ignorance and suffering. It makes no sense. So the reality of creation, Mayavadi's doctrine of Jagan Mithya, the world is unreal, is rejected. Vaishnavas assert that the material world is real, although temporary. Since it is an expansion of the Supreme's energy, it cannot be false. And the same as I said previously, that something real cannot come from something unreal. They also question why an illusion, Maya, would not be so consistent and convincing across all of the entities if we were not rooted in a deeper reality. So, Vaishnava critics, including Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, objected to the Mayavadi's practice where a sannyasi immediately assumes the title of Narayan. They viewed this as offensive, believing the individual soul is an eternal servant of God, not God himself. Actually, when Lord Chaitanya met Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, Om Namo Narayan. This is how the impersonalists address sannyasi. Now, in this particular case, he was actually right, but he didn't know it. He assumed that all sannyasis were Narayan. So, Vaishnavas argue that Mayavadi philosophy relies on misinterpretation of scripture to fulfill its impersonal conclusion. The Bhagavad Purana considered the ultimate Vedic text by many Vaishnavas, explicitly describe the Supreme as a person. So there's room in the Absolute for variegatedness. And actually, when I get to Lord Chaitanya, we'll actually let's go to the next slide. Yeah, well, before one more point. The impersonalists want to take away all qualities, all attributes. His language describing attributes, this will limit the Absolute. So we would say, rather than deny the attributes, the forms, the qualities of the Supreme, we go the other way and say, he has unlimited qualities, unlimited form, unlimited attributes. He has all beauty, all strength, all wealth, all knowledge, all renunciation to an unlimited degree. Shankaracharya, Ananta Shesh is bearing one of the hood. He's bearing the universe on his hoods, and he's chanting the glories of Krishna with each of his thousands of mouths, and he never finishes. He's going on since time immemorial, reciting the glories of the Lord. Never finishes. So the glories of the Lord are unlimited. It's not that by describing the Lord as having characteristics, you limit him. No. His qualities are unlimited. So, to say a little bit about Lord Chaitanya's encounters with leading Mayavadis, leading impersonalists. So Lord Chaitanya, when he went to Jagannath Puri, he had just recently taken sannyasi. He went into the temple of Lord Jagannath, and he immediately lost consciousness out of intense ecstasy. He was lying on the floor. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya happened to witness this, and he recognized that this was some special personality. Seeing this beautiful young sannyasi fainting in the temple. So Bhattacharya arranged for Lord Chaitanya to be taken to his home. Now, very soon after that, all the associates of Lord Chaitanya were just a little bit behind him. They came into the temple, and the Lord wasn't there. And they heard people telling about the story about how Lord Chaitanya had been taken away by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So they went to the Bhattacharya's house, and they revived him by chanting Hare Krishna. They had a kirtan, and Lord Chaitanya regained consciousness. So Lord Chaitanya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had a debate. So Sarvabhauma thought that, well, this is a young sannyasi, very attractive. Let me help him. Let me instruct him in Vedanta, so that he can be strong in his sannyas vows, so he doesn't fall down. So he instructed Lord Chaitanya for 7 days. And for 7 days, Lord Chaitanya said nothing. And prompting Sarvabhauma to question, well, do you understand what I'm saying? You're not saying anything, you're not asking any questions? And Lord Chaitanya said, well, yeah, I understand the Vedanta Sutra very well, but I can't make any sense of your contrived interpretations. So they had some debate, and Lord Chaitanya explained his personalist interpretation of Vedanta Sutra without any touching on the impersonalism of Sarvabhauma. Sarvabhauma was astonished and humbled by, And you know, there was some back and forth. I mean, Sarvabhauma didn't just immediately accept. They had some debate, but finally, Sarvabhauma was overcome with repentance for his pride, and he surrendered to Lord Chaitanya, realizing that he was the Supreme Lord, and that only Supreme Lord could offer such brilliant interpretations. So here we see in this picture, Lord Chaitanya revealed first his four-armed form of Vishnu, and then displayed his two-armed form as Krishna, complete with flute. So Sarvabhauma fell on the ground in prostration, fully convinced of Lord Chaitanya's divinity, and he was instantly transformed into a great devotee, and he became very ecstatic. Actually, some days later, the devotees were swimming in the Ganges, and Lord Chaitanya was talking with one of his associates, I forget who, and they commented that here this very serious, strict Brahmin who just engaged in dry study of Vedanta all day. Here he is in the water. What's he doing in the water? He's having a splash fight with Advaitacharya. So, Lord, this is just astounding that he became an ecstatic Vaishnava by the association of Lord Chaitanya. So the next encounter Lord Chaitanya was with Prakashananda Saraswati. And he was a great Mayavadi sannyasi. And this was in Benares. He was criticized. Lord Chaitanya was there, and he was holding kirtan. He was going through the street and having ecstatic kirtan all the time. But Prakashananda, he was a Mayavadi sannyasi. He was criticizing that this sannyasi, he's just a sentimentalist. He's not here studying Vedanta with us. He's, chanting and dancing in the street with other sentimentalists. When Lord Chaitanya's associates heard about this criticism, it pained them very much, so they wanted to, Lord Chaitanya arranged to meet the Mayavadi sannyasis. When he went there, he arrived and he sat down. He didn't join them immediately. He just sat down in kind of an unclean place where people washed their feet. And the Mayavadis, first of all, they were just astonished at Lord Chaitanya's brilliant effulgence, and also his humility. And so they came and they invited him in, and they had a debate. Prakashananda challenged Chaitanya that why would he engage in emotionalism of Sankirtan instead of serious study of Vedanta? Lord Chaitanya replied with a powerful display of humility, claiming that his guru had instructed him to chant because he was a great fool who was not qualified to study Vedanta. But then when he started speaking Vedanta, he was so brilliant, he was able to defeat all the Mayavadi sannyasis. So, Lord, there's, so there were three tools that Lord Chaitanya used with these two Mayavadis, Sarvabhauma and Prakashananda. Well, first is beauty and effulgence. And when we're out speaking to people, we might not have the same effulgence as Lord Chaitanya. But if we have purity of purpose, that's something attractive. People will pick up on that sincerity. That purity of purpose is very powerful. And Lord Chaitanya had displayed philosophical acumen, and also his humility. With Prakashananda, he displayed his humility by sitting in the unclean place. With Sarvabhauma, he displayed his humility by just listening for 7 days. So we're not called on to listen to Mayavadis for 7 days or even 7 minutes. But this was Lord Chaitanya's technique. So the outcome is that Prakashananda and his followers accepted Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the divine authority. They not only renounced their impersonal philosophy, but also became ardent followers of the Sankirtan movement, spreading the practice of chanting the holy name. An unfortunate Mayavadi cannot chant. So this is something Prabhupada says on Shankaracharya. There's a very famous prayer made by Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya has made many prayers about Krishna, especially about his Vrindavan Leela. He has worshipped Krishna in many ways. This is his last composition of poetry. Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda Mudhamate, Samprape Samite Kale, Madane Nahi, Na Rakshati Dukhinga. You fools and rascals, all your grammatical word juggling and philosophical speculation will not save you at the time of death. Just worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. And he was addressing, and so here's Prabhupada's commentary. He was addressing the whole world. You fools, Bhaja Govindam, worship Govinda. Just become devotee of Krishna. Just become Krishna conscious. You're philosophizing. You are talking on grammar in this way and that way, but because these people, they want to establish impersonalism from Bhagavad Gita by the strength of grammar. Such a nonsense they are. They want to understand God through grammar, you see? God is not so cheap that he can understand he can be understood through grammar. Therefore, he especially specified, when death will catch you, your grammar will not save you, you fools, so please become Krishna conscious. So there was Radhika Raman gave an example of another follower of Shankaracharya, Madhusudana Saraswati, and he was the leading scholar. And they can't help themselves. Okay, so this is Madhusudana Saraswati. If the yogis, with their minds controlled by the practice of meditation, want to see that indescribable light, attributeless, actionless, and supreme, let them see it. But for me, that wondrous blue effulgence which runs about and plays on the banks of the Jamuna, let that blue effulgence be the joy of my life. He can't quite get himself to say Krishna, but boy, there's some blue effulgence on the bank of the Jamuna that's really, really attractive. Okay, so what are the impersonalists missing in their impersonalism? So Radhika Raman gave this example. In his opinion, one of the most devastating critiques of impersonalism came in a purport on this verse about Bhishma Day. And it was just almost as an aside. The purport of the verse hardly had anything to do with impersonalism. So here's the story. When Bhishma was dying on the bed of arrows in his ecstasy of devotion, this is what he remembered. Bhishma was a great devotee. He was in the rasa of chivalry, this fighting spirit. And as he lay dying, Krishna came before him, and Bhishma Dev was completely absorbed in this pastime from the Battle of Kurukshetra. Krishna was driving Arjuna's chariot. He had the reins in his left hand, and the whip for guiding the horses in his right hand. He was covered. His body and his hair was covered by dust raised from the hooves of the horses on the battlefield. He was perspiring, drops of perspiration. And there was bleeding from the very arrows that Bhishma Dev was shooting at Krishna. And when Bhishma was fighting so furiously that Arjuna's life was at risk, Krishna, in order to save his devotee Arjuna, leapt down from the chariot, picked up a broken chariot wheel that was lying on the ground, and charged toward Bhishma. And this was the image that Bhishma remembered. In his fighting spirit of the chivalrous rasa, Krishna's coming to kill me. And he's remembering this in great ecstasy. So I'm going to read the purport to this, the whole purport to this verse, because this is kind of amazing. The dealings of Lord Krishna and Bhishma Dev on the battlefield of Kurukshetra are interesting because the activities of Sri Krishna appeared to be partial to Arjuna and at enmity with Bhishma Dev. So Krishna was taking the side of Arjuna in the battle and fighting against Bhishma Dev, so it looked like he was actually partial. But factually, this was especially meant to show special favor to Bhishma Dev, a great devotee of the Lord. The astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. The Lord, being absolute, can accept service from his pure devotee, even in the garb of an enemy. The Supreme Lord can have any enemy. He cannot have any enemy, nor can a so-called enemy harm him, because he is ajita, or unconquerable. But still, he takes pleasure when his pure devotee beats him like an enemy or rebukes him from a superior position. Remember the stories of the cowherd boys, where they'd engage in a wrestling match, and sometimes Krishna's team would lose, so they'd have to carry the winning team on their shoulders. So Krishna lost the battle to his confidential friends, the cowherd boys. He had to carry one of the boys on his shoulder. So here, Bhishma Dev played the part of these are the transcendental reciprocatory dealings of the devotee with the Lord. And those who have no information of pure devotional service cannot penetrate into the mystery of such dealings. Bhishma Dev played the part of a valiant warrior, and he purposely pierced the body of the Lord, so that to the common eyes it appeared that the Lord was wounded. But factually, all this was to bewilder the non-devotees. The all-spiritual body cannot be wounded, and a devotee cannot become the enemy of the Lord. Had it been so, Bhishma Dev would not have desired to have the very same Lord as the ultimate destination of his life. Had Bhishma Dev been an enemy of Krishna, Krishna could have annihilated him without even moving. There was no need to come before Bhishma Dev with blood and wounds, but he did so because the warrior devotee wanted to see the transcendental beauty of the Lord decorated with wounds created by a pure devotee. This is the way of exchanging transcendental rasa, or relations with the Lord and the servitor. By such dealings, the Lord and the devotee become glorified in their respective positions. The Lord was so angry that Arjuna checked him when he was moving toward Bhishma Dev, but in spite of Arjuna's checking, he proceeded. Listen to this statement. He proceeded towards Bhishma Dev as a lover to a lover, without caring for hindrances. So here they're fighting in the battle. He's wounded with arrows. He's taking the chariot wheel like he's going to kill Bhishma. And Prabhupada says, he proceeded toward Bhishma Dev as a lover goes to a lover without caring for hindrances. And this was only seen by Bhishma Dev. Arjuna did not see this rasa because Arjuna was behind Krishna. Arjuna was in a different rasa with Krishna as a friend. But Bhishma, in this chivalrous rasa, he enjoyed that relationship of Krishna in a fighting spirit. And Krishna was actually reciprocating with everyone on the battlefield individually. And this is how Krishna reciprocates with each one of us individually according to our mood and according to our surrender and according to our desire. So apparently his determination was to kill Bhishma Dev, but factually was to please him as a great devotee of the Lord. The Lord is undoubtedly the deliverer of all conditioned souls. And this is the statement that Radhika Raman was referring to, this devastating critique of impersonalism, almost as an aside. The impersonalists desire salvation from him, but he always awards them according to their aspiration. But here, Bhishma Dev aspires to see the Lord in his personal feature. All pure devotees aspire for this. So, they want liberation into the impersonal Brahman, they can have it. But they're going to miss out on the ecstasy of the personal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether as a friend, a parent, a lover, or as an enemy on the battlefield. Everyone has their own individual personal relationship with the Lord, and this is revealed as we become purified. So, let's see what else I have here. Okay, let's talk about, we don't have too much time. We're going to talk a bit about the background of impersonalism. I made sure I had enough material this time, because previous times I taught that I always ran out early. I have more I could say, but this will have to do for now. So the background of impersonalism, the underlying default background of modern Kali Yuga society is impersonalism. You don't have to work to be an impersonalist. On an individual level, interpersonal dealings are mediated through technology, leading to lack of personal connection and attachment, feeling of isolation, lack of empathy, depression. So many young people, they say they have no friends. But if you check their social media, they have hundreds of friends. But they're still lonely and depressed because all their dealings with their so-called friends are through this impersonal medium of technology. So on a societal level, so what is impersonal as the underlying principle of this world lead to? Well, it leads to resource exploitation and environmental degradation. If this world if this world is just resources for us to enjoy, then what's to stop us from just exploiting it to whatever degree will satisfy our senses, you see, in other cultures, not necessarily the cultures derived from the Abrahamic religions, which tend to be dual. Oh, okay, we're out of time. Sorry.